off of the prompt and their focus.
Mm-hmm.
They have to, whatever their answer is to the focus or whatever it's telling them to do, they have to support it with evidence from the text. So whatever you're annotating has to support your focus.
Okay. So they're using the prompt and their focus to find, or using the prompt to find evidence to support their focus?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And also, like today when I was teaching it, I was telling them if you have questions, you can annotate it. But I don't want them to get crazy, because that happened with poetry, analyzing poetry,
Mm-hmm.
where they'll just mark up the poem, which looks very beautiful, but
Mm-hmm.
then you don't answer the questions right.
Okay.
So I don't want them to think I need to use all these symbols
Mm-hmm.
and just make it pretty.
Okay. So when they write their essay, how many main ideas should they have? How in your mind, how do you imagine them using the evidence that they find in this text that they annotated?
In my head, they should have 3 body paragraphs.
Okay.
2 to 3.
Okay. So keep going.
Yeah, so you should be able, I say 3 because when we do like we're doing myths and fables, I tell them to pull evidence from the beginning, middle, and end.
Mm-hmm.
And then you talk about whatever you pulled from the beginning, middle, and end.
Okay.
So it's like the same thing, correct?
Okay. So for an opinion essay, then their focus would be the answer to
Whatever the question was.
Okay. So then they're reading and they're looking for something that supports their opinion.
Mm-hmm.
In an informational text or informational prompt,
You're going to state whatever, and then you're going to pull out facts or evidence from the text in order to support whatever you stated. Or whatever you're informing the audience about.
Okay.
What you're talking about.
Okay. So the outcome, use your prompt to find evidence to support their focus. What are the skills that they need to have while they're doing this annotation?
Reading.
Okay.
And like you said before, give them skills where they could get through the text, because the texts are at 1,000, 1,010, high 900s, and my students are 300, 400, 500, that's our level, and those are the texts that we have to give them because that's what they're going to see.
Mm-hmm.
So first being able to read the text, and then second being able to pull important details and not just, and being able to understand, okay, I read this paragraph, what is the gist of this paragraph? Do I need this? Is it important? So.
Okay. I would add to that the skill of metacognition, so them practicing thinking about what they're reading as they're reading it, thinking about their thinking, and okay, well,
self-analyzing,
keep saying more.
Yeah, because I've been using checklists, so whatever we do, when we were talking about making a theme statement, okay, now go back and check the checklist. You have to be able to think about, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Did I hit all the points? So I kind of want to have that for everything we do now. So they get into the habit of checking, going back and check your work. So you can get all those points that you need, because the prompt is a checklist in essence. So use it always.
So I want to pause real fast there on those outcomes and then move to the pre-planning and planning piece, because I think when you know the outcomes for that, it is so much easier to teach and know that any smaller pieces you need to teach in the annotation phase. Because what happens a lot of times is okay, so they need to be pulling out these important details, then you get to planning and it's okay, they have these important details, but because we didn't annotate a little bit more specifically, it's taking them a very long time to plan an essay because they haven't been making connections or anything while they were reading. So you guys, on here it's just planning. Okay, sorry. On that study guide that I saw the students, there was like a pre-planning and a planning, but in your mind though, it's just planning, or do you have two phases of planning?
It is. Let me pull it up because we're gonna follow it exactly along this. And it says just planning. Intro.
Awesome.
It is planning.
Hello? Hey. Oh, it's okay. That's okay. That's all right. When you get here, we will be just fine. Okay. Bye-bye. Okay.
I think this is planning because like intro and purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, you're
just
fine.
planning. It just is planning.
Cool. So in the planning phase, what is it that students are doing?
They're planning their essay, so that would be like the graphical organizer.
With what purpose?
Planning so when they write, it's easier to just pull it out, pop it in, turn it into like full sentences.
Okay. So if a student has a strong plan, it would have what in it?
It's gonna have that thesis statement or that topic sentence. They're gonna it's gonna have details to support the thesis statement. Then it's gonna be like body. It's gonna be say body 1, body 2, and if there's a body 3, and then a conclusion. It's gonna be there's the first sentence and then like little bullets. So it's gonna be like a layout basically. So now all they have to do is transfer what's there.
So the word you used,
Yeah.
you said layout.
Yeah.
So
How
when
it's gonna look.
well, we don't have to go through the how it looks piece right
Because
now because I think you have an idea of it.
Yeah.
And somewhere I think I saw an example of it somewhere. But so here's my thing. So a student gets to they look, they read the annotated stuff, they look at this paper, and they're creating a plan. What are the thoughts? Like what leads them to know that they have what the topics of their 3 body paragraphs are and what the details are? Like is this when they're thinking about what those topics would be? Have they thought about them prior to that? Like where are they in their minds?
In the annotation guide, there's numbering, and like what I try to tell them is when you're circling for like the main points or whatever, you're numbering it, and that's gonna turn it into their body paragraphs.
Gotcha. So another skill when they're reading is pulling out 3 main ideas. Okay. Great. So then, now we can go back to, that's kind of where I was wanting to get, and we probably won't have time to do planning, so we'll just do annotating. When you're thinking about an assessment then, you did a great job pulling out what the skills are. That's exactly what your assessment for annotating would be. So if they need to be able to pull out 3 main ideas and be able to note 3 or more specific details for each of those main ideas. So a question, so rather than being like, okay, like, did they have enough circles, question marks, underlines, or throughout, you're asking them a question about what the main ideas of the text were, the 3 big points that they found in the text, and also then because you asked them to find those 3 things, in the text you're saying, I should be able to look at your text and find where you got those 3 pieces and the details that you thought were going with those.
So when they're attacking the prompt, when they're entering the text, they need to have a prompt then.
Yes.
Okay,
There's no point. There's literally no point in annotating a text with no prompt.
On Monday, because I didn't have a prompt. And I'm like,
what is? Look, why is this? This is yes, exactly. Yeah. Okay. So I think that does pull out a very important piece. Yeah. This entire thing, every time you do this, has to spawn directly from yes. Yeah. Is it because this annotation is different than the annotation they're going to do on their like FSA content-based test, because they're probably not going to go through, read all the questions, then go back and read the text. So when they are annotating on just a random part of their 4th grade FSA, they might be reading and just pulling out important details that you taught them.
Like the writing, writing thing.
But for writing, they read it first. And that's genuinely a skill you teach them. Like, they're going to try to trick you and put the passages first. You're going to skip that, read the prompt, and then go back. So I think we're kind of getting a little bit out of time, so I want to make sure we're able to get out of here. But the biggest thing that I would say is so 2 things. One, you need to take that calendar that you have, and for every one of those weeks, every one of these items,
make an assessment.
Yes, make an assessment, but before you're making an assessment, you need to go through, write out what is the outcome, so what is it that students need to be able to do, and then you need to identify what the skills are for that piece. Then when you're creating your lesson plan, you're strategically making sure you're teaching those skills as a part of your overall writing process, and then your assessment needs to, again, strategically assess those skills. So like when we just went through, so you're going to be, so if one of the skills is grappling with difficult text, something during your week with annotation is like teaching a skill around grappling with difficult text. That's probably going to be an ongoing skill you're teaching.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a skill of annotation. So this week it's there, and then you're assessing that skill. So if the skill you taught this week for that is context clues, then part of your assessment is going to have to include something about the context clues from that passage. Pulling out important details and thinking about your thinking, you would have a question that says, like, when you got to this part, what did you think about, to see if they were able to realize that. The prompt specifically said something about, like, are zoos good for animals or not bad for animals? And in this part of the paragraph, it says, zoos, like, some people don't think zoos are good for animals because this. That made me think, like, this is an example of what the prompt was talking about. Like, you want to, like, assess them there, and then, like we talked about, assessing them on can they pull out things that they're going to use on their plan. So literally every one of these, and I would even say if you could take the time on the front end to figure that out for the entire piece, like
assessment.
that's a long-term plan, and I think that's going to definitely up the status of your writing lessons throughout the year, because you know exactly what you're driving toward, and you can speak to things this week that are, they're coming up, and start, putting in that foundation for what's to come, because you know what's to come.
Yeah, because when I got the prompt, like, I knew what I was going to do, and now with them, I'm like, Now, definitely.
Yep. And I also say, if someone gives you something that you don't understand, just don't use it. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, there's, you know what I mean? It's like, just don't. because that happens a lot. Like, the district will give you something on the curriculum guide, so another teacher will give you something, either like delete the slides that you don't get, or just make your own. Especially if you go through this process and long-term plan something out. Like, if it doesn't make sense to you, if it doesn't align with your outcomes, don't use it. So where I think we should go is, in my mind, a reasonable expectation would be that you're able to kind of go through all the way up to focus and topic with outcomes and skills. So not a long-term plan, but a mid-term plan, basically, because that would get you pretty much through the end before Christmas break, if each of these is like a week. And then I would love to sit down and look at that with you and talk through, those are the exact skills, maybe ask some questions to get us to make sure we don't leave anything out. So I would say all the way through focus and topic. So before you actually get into that whole fun body paragraph. How do you write one of those things? Yeah.
Another question.
Yes.
So what's happening is in my content, like it is trying to tie writing into it. And because we have our own schedule, like my principal was like, don't use those.